S&P continues to stay in that range, super tight going into NVIDIA. I thought we'd get more action on PAN, but we'll talk about that. It's starting to feel a little bit like 2020. You're starting to see GameStop again. We're going to go over this in some detail, but look after hours and look at the green in here in the space that you have there. We need to talk about this in a little bit of detail so people can understand why this one is moving the way that it is. I do want to go through the heat map a little bit. We went through this Saturday, but I want people to get and understand what's moving. And we should talk about Bitcoin as well. Maybe we should start here. So the Bitcoin, we went through this a little bit on Saturday, left shoulder, head, right shoulder. And you can see the flag and the flag breakout. You're still in this range. If we come all the way over here, we can see these peaks, but you're getting to that point where you're setting up to take out the highs. Now, everyone's going to be giddy about this, but quite frankly, you're talking about a couple basis points now on a move. You break out, yes, it would be great, and then it goes higher, fantastic. But the bottom line is where we're really starting to see is just people are getting short squeezed left and right. And I do want to go through these names with you. So if we take a look at Block, this is something I shorted back here. And there's a pattern that I paid a lot of attention to, and I'd like you to pay attention to it too, because I think it can save you a lot of aggravation. That's how the cool kids say it. But you see how you break down right here? Once you break down and then you go sideways for a little bit and then you go back over like you're over right here on that 55, you have what we refer to as, lack of a better term, an oh crap moment if you're an institution, where you now realize that you're reclaiming a level where you have institutional support where you didn't think you had what? Institutional support. So I have used a 12, a 22, and a 55, but you know what? You should use what you're comfortable with. That's what I'm comfortable with. When I close like this, I need to pay attention to it. Now, does that mean I'm going to jump into coin here because it broke this DTL and I'm below an institutional level? No. What it would mean to me is that I would take the time and pay attention to this. For those that are new, welcome. But for those that know me, I do index and then I do sector. And then what do? I do stock. I'm a top-down trader. That's how I look at the world. So yes, this coin could absolutely go up. But I stick with my process because my process has kept me alive for 25 years trading the markets. So when I look at this and I go, okay, well, here's the block. Great, we're back over. Okay, good. I would start going through the dogs. All right, well, what's CLSK doing? Well, over 55. If you're over 55, what's that mean? Institutional support. MARA, we're over the 55. MSTR, guess what? We're over. I actually tried to trade on this. Believe it or not, I got stopped out of it before it ran. And that does happen to people. Not every trade that someone does on YouTube makes money. And you can see how you're over right here as well, right? So I'm going to say it this way. I wouldn't sleep on these names. I'd be very cautious about them. But this was a really good report, like a really good report when they did earnings. And I find this kind of fascinating. We're going to get a little granular in some of these names tonight, if you can't tell. We haven't done that for a while. And I want to go through a couple things here that I think could save some people some aggravation. I want to go through the McClellan summation. I was looking at it today when I was, pardon me, on a coaching call. And it just made me think, I'm like, you know what, it'd be a great time to review because of what it just did. But I want to go through this. That's how I would look. So maybe I'll look at CLSK tomorrow. Maybe I'll look at another one. But I will look at this now that we've reclaimed that. And I don't know another way to refer to it except, once you're down and it's like a couple weeks, it's still a big deal. Now, it's different if it's been months. Like if you broke, let me show you this. Like if you broke and it's been months, it's not as big of a deal. But if you just broke for a little bit of time and then you pop back over, that means you're out of position. And now you're going to have that, I'm out of position and I have institutional support. That's not where you want to be. It's a pickle, to say the least. And so when you look at something even like a NVIDIA, when NVIDIA did it, that's why it did what it did. And then they felt good about themselves, like, oh, we're okay. And then it closed back over. Once it closed back over, you see the force of that move? That's all institutions going, I'm out of position. And when you see that, you want to pay attention to it. We're going to go through a couple more names, but I think it's important for us just to focus on the ES and go, we're not really going anywhere, but we're not falling apart, right? And then we take a look at the NQ, same thing. But we all are hitting all-time highs. So we must be cognizant that this is broadening out, right? And we can see that this is broadening out. If we looked at the new high, new low list, we can see that it's just same soup reheated. Small caps really aren't going anywhere. Is the 10-year over anything like a 450? Not really. Do I need to be concerned to spend time on it? The VIX is at 12. Does that mean it's good or bad to buy options? We know under 15, we know where we want to be. This is not broken. I walked through it on Saturday. I would strongly watch. I'll link it at the end. Is the dollar doing something I need to be concerned about? No. Right. So that leads us to go, okay, well, what's moving? So let's use something that we learned on Saturday. Let's take a look at the heat map. So if I click on the heat map for a moment, and I'll pull this over. So bear with me because I'm not going to have time to edit this. But what I showed you on Saturday, and I want to show you in application, because I believe that application is how we learn. And I'll walk you through an interesting trade we did today as well, but I want you to get this concept. So, all right, so here's a heat map. What do you do with it? Well, you click off what you're most interested in, right? And so you can just see that. So I went the big leaders. Where were the big leaders on the day? Micron, AMAT, Lam Research, KLAC. So what's leading? Semiconductor equipment and DRAM. All that just happens to be leading before NVIDIA's earnings. People apparently start liking their cruises again, right? mRNA is doing something, who knows what they're doing. But where are the big dogs? It's all semis. So when you come in tomorrow, what name should you look at? Not software. You should look at semis and figure out what those crazy kids are doing at Netflix. I think that was an upgrade by Weedbush that got them there. But also, what sectors would you avoid? If you had all these clicked again, all you would do is just go here and go, I just really want to know what's going on. Who are the dogs? Because I'm looking for something to short. JP Morgan, basically the guy driving the stock down for himself, saying, yeah, I'm going to retire and we're definitely not going to buy the stock here because it's too expensive. I'm sure that you'd say that if you weren't going to buy your own stock back. And then you start going through them again, but we look again, we're like Dollar General's down, Dollar Tree's down. They were just down again, right? And we're seeing a little weakness in what? In the insurance name, so that might be something to look at. But we're definitely still seeing some dogs here. So by doing this allows us to take that application and then helps us set up for tomorrow. So comment if you find it helpful that I'm linking this stuff together and showing you what I'm showing you and then showing you how to be actionable with it. Just comment below. It really does help me, and I do appreciate you sharing these. Now, we should dive into some of these news events that are going on out there. For example, HIMSS. This was actually really big news, what we saw, where HIMSS is now going to sell those GLP or Ozempic shots, I believe as low as $200 a month. You're going to see a bunch of people start getting involved in this. And this is how it always starts. It always starts with, you see the top people, the celebrities, they're all doing it. It's all the rage. And then it goes from there. And, we'll see how this thing all sorts out. But what's important about this is it provided a nice opportunity. We actually did this in the community, and we actually did this early pre-market. I wanted to leg into it. And this is why I always get starters when I see stuff like this, especially this kind of news. As you get more experience, you learn how to read news and what's pertinent and what's not pertinent. And this was definitely something that was pertinent. So when I saw that, I'm like, yeah, everybody that missed these other names, they're going to want to participate. They're going to want to get in. So we bought some in like mid to high 15s. And then my plan was look for a drop and then go from there. Man plans, God laughs, didn't happen. And we just stayed with it. And it was real simple because all we had to do was work it up. And then once you see this, whenever you see bars like this that are massive reversals, they become your demarcation lines. So this became our demarcation line, and we just worked it up. And we were able to get up about $3.50 on a trade very, 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 very quickly. Here, take a look. This HIMSS, this is big news. I think this is huge. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start a position, and then while I'm trading other names, every 50 cents down, I'm just going to buy more. I'll put an order out there at like 15.40. And then I'll just keep going 14.75, 14.50. Like I'll just buy all the way down. And if I close under the pricing of the day, then that means there's something seriously wrong with the trade. But I want to have a position on just in case it just rips. If it's down by the end of the day and I'm down the position, I'll blow it out. I'm not going to hold it because that would be weird for that to happen. HIMSS just keeps piling along. It's the first 5 minutes and you're already rocking and rolling. I'm up $1 now on that ad. I'm not doing anything with it. I'm just leaving it on for now. I really don't see the sense in doing much. Oh, that's good. We're up $2 now on this HIMSS. What do I got? Oh, I'm not crazy about that. Trimmed HIMSS, small, but I'm up almost $3. And at this point, which is a lot in a $16 stock in a very short period of time. So I'm going to pull something out. Well over $3 now on that trade. Nothing for me to do. I trimmed not even 20% of it, that last pullback. I'm just letting it do its thing. It looks like you found your level. There's your first doji. That might be your exhaustion buying. So you're going to want to watch this here. This makes your life really easy if it's a day trade, though. At this point, I might just keep it. You got to watch that area really closely here. 887. You break that 887, I'm going to kick a bunch of this out. So if this was a day trade, day trade's over. The day trade's busted here. Now, can this go higher? Yeah. But to me, if I got a blow off top like this, and then I undercut right here, every time I have that, I act on it. Because that's telling me that it's made a decision. It's blown off. I have no more buyers. We thought 20 might be an issue for the market maker, but whatever. And then we come here and now I'm breaking. So if this was a day trade for you, you should be out. I took a chunk out there. Now, there's some talk about whether or not this will continue because it's a compounding pharmacy and how are they going to be able to do this? Look, I'm just going to be blunt. That's way above my pay grade. I'm looking at 4 numbers, 4 letters, and that's what I'm trading. As far as the validity of this, I would think that they had this checked out 10 ways to Sunday before they even get involved with it. That's how I would look at it, but you just never know. So does NVO come out there and get upset? I don't know that they would. I would think that they might like the idea of it, but you never know how this stuff is going to go. It certainly had no impact on the names today. And even if you look at this, and I thought this was kind of neat, you actually went up on the day. So I don't think that they're really worried about it from that standpoint. And I just thought that that was worth noting. But this does seem like something that's going to be out there and something that's going to stay. So I did think that it was worth paying attention to, and I did want to bring it to your attention. It's certainly something that I'm going to be paying attention to. I really like this name. I liked it since they turned positive back here, and then you had another great earnings quarter, and I don't really understand why it even went down that quarter, but it did nonetheless. And then you turned and you reversed, and you look great right now. So this may be a name that has follow through tomorrow. I do think that you're going to see some of those other names have follow through tomorrow as well. GME. This is where, when you start doing research, it really does pay off. When you start looking at this and the flow that you had today, and you see like the little shakeout here, this is really clear the level that you really should be watching, which is just right down here. It's that 2020, the top of that wick, and you're just unable to close over it. So this was a real nice trade today to start, but you have to be willing to ride these guys and not just get whacked around. So I always tell people when they do these, whether it's stock or people say to me, you short this stock or, you buy puts on this. I did both. I shorted all this and I had puts on it. I did very well. You just have to size correctly and you have to follow the plan. You can't oversize because you'll get destroyed. And if you size correctly, then you're able to stay in it. What I always tell somebody is, especially with the options, just don't use more than 1% of the account. And it is what it is. That's how you do these kinds of trades. Just remember that. You want to keep them at 1%. But this kind of stuff can work. I mean, they could be game changers. Just even on 1% of the account, they can move your account drastically. The goal is to keep doing it over and over again, not take one huge risk and see if it works. Some other names out there that look like they're breaking out that I think we should go over is names like Hood, and we could see how that looked today and how that's playing out. And I think that's playing out very nicely. You're setting up this huge base. And you're breaking out of it. It's not the biggest base in the world, but I'll take it. You're about 2 months out on a base, and you're breaking out here today. I did look at this. It just was one of those names. There were other names that were way more interesting to me to get involved. What I will say is that we're seeing a broadening out of names. You're seeing a broadening out of names, period. Hood can benefit from a lot of things. We went through the entire margin interest trade. Robinhood can benefit from that in ways that people aren't even understanding. And I think that that's what you're seeing with IBKR hitting highs, things along those lines. And you see it down, after hours, but who knows? JP Morgan, we should probably just discuss real quick. I mean, whenever the CEO comes out and says our stock's too expensive and I'm going to, talk about my succession plan, it means that they're probably going to buy their own stock back and they want to drop the stock. There's literally no other reason for somebody to say that, right? Same reason, and I mark my words when we look at the 13Fs, when Druckenmiller comes out here and drives the stock down and says, oh, it just moved. Long term, it looks really good, but, we're going to get out now because it might have got ahead of itself. When you look at his 13Fs in probably 2 more months before it comes out, and you see that his position increased before earnings, everyone will be shocked by it, or they'll have forgotten by then because everyone has the attention span of a TikTok video. But pay attention to it, and you'll see that. It's very important to note. I don't believe that for a minute. You always watch what they do, not what they say. They use their pulpit to their advantage, not to your advantage. They're not going out there and telling you what they're going to do so that it could help you. Just remember that. And you're seeing the Bitcoin names as we went through, like the MSTR that is continuing to push. And we should just spend a second here on PANW. I actually thought that this was okay. I didn't think it was that bad. You're actually down about 8% after hours, even after the conference call. Billings was light, and that was it. Everything else was in line. It even looked like gross margins were in line. I don't think it should be down 10%, but it doesn't really matter what I think. It's down 10%. I had a little trade in it. I pulled a little out, not a lot. I'm still up in it. I haven't decided what I'm doing with it at this point, to be completely candid at the time of filming this. But I did not think it was that bad of a call, and we'll see how it goes, and we'll go from there. I do want to point out some things that are definitely worth watching tomorrow. ZM, this was not a bad call either. And they're basically in line with gross margins, and they're in line with where their guidance is. So I don't think that this is really the end of the world either. And I think that's a very important distinction that we're seeing. Even these companies that are supposed to be missing or had bad quarters last quarter, they're just absolutely holding their ground. The other thing that I would say is if you beat, you are being significantly rewarded. Now, if we go here, we can see that this quarter we were up 27% and revenue was up 28 basis points. But look at that move. It's hardly anything. Now, they did raise guidance, but they raised guidance here too. Here's 45 basis points and a 25% beat. But this one, we're up $30. Well, why? One, the entire base. Two, where we're at right now. We're in a micro environment, meaning when we look at the stool and we discuss the stool, we know that we have the macro leg, and we know that that would be, econ, what's happening with CPI, the Fed speakers, all 7,200 of them. And then you have, so the macro, the fundamental, and the technical leg, right? And then on top of that, you have the stool, and the stool sits right up here. Okay, and sometimes if you're at a bar, you're leaning on the front leg, the macro, sometimes you're leaning on the back. What does all this mean? Well, right now you're leaning on micro. And what's surprising to me is it's like a cat and hunt roof. If you beat and you beat well, you're being rewarded, and it's aggressive. It's not small. This is not a small move on that name. And this was a good, solid quarter, but they didn't reinvent the wheel. Okay, it was a good quarter, but it was a good quarter. Let's leave it at that. But let me show you this. It's not just here. See CCL and how that's up, RCL. See how that's up, breaking out all-time highs. Why? NCL, see how all these names are moving? All because they're looking at having better than expected travel. And they all moved, and they were massive today. Remember when we just looked at the heat map? That's pretty impressive. Then you go out here and say, okay, well, how are they positioning themselves going into the next big dog that's coming out with earnings? And we're having a real tough time closing at that 950. But remember all the names we just went and took a look at, where we looked at Lam Research and that reversal today? This is what's so cool about heat maps when you learn how to use them correctly. And then people remember this from the community. We tried to trade on this, actually got stopped out. Now it's at all-time highs. But when you start to see these names like KLAC, Lam Research, AMAT, I have no idea. I had a decent trade in this after earnings. I have no idea why this dropped on earnings. None. It was a really solid quarter, and now you're taking out all-time highs. All these names are moving when? When are all these names moving? Right into someone coming out with earnings on Wednesday. They're all setting up, all of them. And I think that's really important for us to know. Look at Taiwan Semi and look at the growth from Taiwan Semi after they came out and showed their sales figures. And now there's supposedly more capacity than they've ever had that they were showing. That's the quote rumor out there right now. So what does NVIDIA do if they have a great quarter? People will say, well, it's already up. Yeah, you're up from here, but look at the growth of this quarter on $1 trillion company. So what we would do is just look at the earnings and then see how it would move. Historically, you see this move somewhere around 8 or 9%. I think it's going to be more volatile than that. Now, you never know, but I will tell you this, and you're already seeing them talk about it. This is going to be more volatile than a CPI or a non-farm payrolls number. You have to understand that if NVIDIA is not selling chips or they're selling a lot of chips, it flips the script, right? If they crush and Blackwell's doing amazing, then we're going to go higher. And if they're out and they're not selling chips, then the whole sector is probably going to sell off. So it's really going to be a key driver. Now, I got a lot of good comments about dropping these nuggets at the end of these videos, so I'm going to just drop another one. So this is the New York Composite in front of us, and the lines below are the McClellan Summation Index. And for time's sake, you can look it up yourself on what it is. I will not use this for bottoms. There are other things that I will look for bottoms. There are two things that I do not play with that I will take very seriously, and I'm going to show you the first one, and there's a reason why I'm showing this. See this demarcation line right here? See how that is? See, now this is yellow and that's yellow. That's going to be too much. It's too much yellow. How about we make it red? Is that good? That's good. All right, so you see this line right here? That's the zero line, essentially, okay? It's not exact, but it's the zero line. See how you're crossing over right here on the summation? I will not play with that. I will not bet against this. Now, I just will not. If you're doing this, I'm bullish on the New York, on the composite, overall on the index. Remember, I'm a top-down guy. That's how I look at it. Not even so much just that you're crossing here, but I still don't play with it when it's doing this. But when I'm crossing the zero line, if you go and take a look at every single time you've done this, and you can go back for decades, you go higher every single time. The magnitude of that move, I don't know. But when you cross the zero, you pay attention to it. And you want to see if you start rolling, it gets a little sleepy, then you know you got to get out of the way. That's the first thing that I do here. The second thing that I will show you, and I have gone over this before, And what we'll do is we're just going to go back to a little period of time right here. And I don't want to do too much. So what we'll do is we'll go back to 22. And what I do is every time that you get up to that 400 or 500, you can go back a decade and look at what I'm about to tell you. Every time you get up to 500 and you cross, you're marking a high. Okay? It doesn't matter when. These two lines cross and you're up near that 500, you're marking a high. You can set your watch to it. So a little bit ago, 2 weeks ago, I showed you how to mark lows. This is how I mark highs. This is one of the main things that I will look at. So if I do this and I cross like we did here, or I cross even like I did here, they are pretty darn good indicators that we're going to hit a high. And I'll go back a little further and you can see them here. It doesn't mean that you're never coming back again, but it does mean that at least in the short term until this settles down, that you most likely have put a top in. That's it. You like these little comments, you like these little tidbits at the end, just comment and below and let me know. That's it.